Okay, well, this morning we are looking at the lectionary readings today, which is 1 Kings chapter 8 and Psalm 84 and Ephesians chapter 6 and John's Gospel chapter 6 from verse 56. So we're going to start with 1 Kings again. 1 Kings chapter 8, and here we see a picture of the temple having been built, and this is now a time when the temple is going to be dedicated. So this whole message today is about the indwelling of God, and so this is a time when David has passed on his kingship to his son Solomon. Solomon, in his great infinite wisdom and his service to God, he's built this fabulous, wonderful, really marvellous temple to God, and then we come to the point where it's been dedicated because the Ark of the Covenant is brought into the temple, into the Holy of Holies, and this is where we are with this reading. We're reading from chapter 1 Kings chapter 8 verse 1, verse 6, verse 10 to 11, and verse 22 to 30, and verse 41 to 43. So there's quite a lot of segments there because it's a very long reading today in the lectionary, but that's the reading we're on today. And as Solomon stands before the altar, he prays to God, and he asks God to bless the temple, and he also says something quite interesting, which is that he asks people, or he asked God that he would hear the prayers of the people, and especially, and in verse 30 it says, "And may you hear the supplication of your servant and of your people Israel when they pray towards this place. And hear in heaven your dwelling place, and when you hear, forgive." Now, you know, it may well be that people sometimes look at Israel, they see pictures of Israel, and they see the Jewish men there, and you see them by the wall there, and they're praying, and they've got their phylacteries on with their words of prayers, and they've got them put into the slots in the wall, and they're standing there and they're praying to God. They're actually facing the temple wall. It's the whole point. It's a part of the wall of the temple that's broken. That's what they're doing. They're actually fulfilling what the scripture's saying, that when they pray towards the temple, you know, we know that Muslims pray towards Mecca in the east, and you know, Jewish people pray towards the temple, and we don't do that today for the simple reason that Christ has come, and that Christ isn't necessarily in the temple in that sense, certainly not in the temple that's been destroyed in Jerusalem, but this is how the Jewish people, that's how their mind works, because they're still very Old Testament. Jewish people don't necessarily believe the New Testament unless they've become Messianic Jews, unless they've become Christian Jews. And there are many, many thousands of Christian Jews. And, you know, remember that Paul, actually, whenever he went to a new place, he said first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. The gospel always needs to go first to the Jew and then to the Gentile. And I believe that that's something that we need to be active in as a church, more than we have been, in that we need to possibly put aside funds that we can actually work towards spreading the gospel towards the Jewish people, the ones that have not yet come to a realization and understanding who Christ is, that he fulfills all of their scriptures, and he is the one that we serve. But here we are, Solomon's looking for and asking for, and you know, bringing his request to God and asking God to dwell in the temple. Now we know that God was where the Ark of the Covenant was, and inside the Ark of the Covenant, which was a seat with cherubim each side and poles that held, they can move it around with, and it was like what they call a mercy seat, And inside the ark was the tablets of stone that came down from the mountain that Moses had. The 10 Commandments were inside the Ark of the Covenant. And God would presence himself at or on the Ark of the Covenant. And that's why in the Holy of Holies, the high priest could only go in there very, very cautiously and being very, very careful that, he didn't do anything wrong, because God, his presence was there, and his presence is awesome. And that's why he had a rope tied around his foot and bells around the bottom of his garment, so that if the bells stopped ringing and it all went a bit quiet, that they could pull him out if he died. That was the whole point of it, because this was an awesome presence of God, and if you're not right in the presence of God, then you die. It's as simple as that. There is that element of God which is awesome and all powerful, and his holiness is so holy that we cannot stand in his presence. So that's what they believed and understood as Jewish people at the time, and of course people still believe that today. You have to remember that the Jewish people still believe and still work with, in tune with what the Old Testament says. Okay, so even foreigners, it says here, when he comes and prays toward his temple here in heaven, your dwelling place, and do according to all which the foreigner calls you to, that all peoples of the earth may know your name and fear you, as do your people Israel, and that they may know that this temple which I have built is called by your name. So here we are. There is a situation where God is really here in a special way in this temple, so much so that the foreigner, anyone who hears, anyone who prays and looks towards the temple and prays towards the temple, that God would hear that prayer. So even foreigners, even from afar off, would actually be blessed by doing this. And I just want to go over to the Psalm now, Psalm 84, which is the Psalm today. And I just want to speak a bit about this morning. Psalm 84. How lovely is your tabernacle, O Lord of hosts. My soul longs, yes, even faints, for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. This psalm prompted a song, one of my favourite songs, and it's so worshipful. It's so important. It's a song that starts off, how lovely is thy dwelling place. And of course, this song was written by, it doesn't give the author actually, but this song was written by someone who had read this psalm and who had decided to write a worship song, a song of worship to God. And this song says a lot for me. And it's a very important song. When I sing it, it's something that my soul and my desire for God and my heart really can sing in complete harmony with this song. This is a song that I feel that is really close to my heart.